So today with Russia, what are they getting in return? We know well that there is no friendship between states. It's always about interests. Everyone comes for their own interests. So today, there is a fear among some people that we've just swapped one master for another. What are you giving the Russians very concretely for them to be there? Are they taking minerals? How are you paying them? Are you selling a portion of the territory? What's the deal?
We would rather die. Because when we say the homeland or death, it has its full meaning.
Who is sponsoring Ibrahim Traore and the coup leaders in West Africa? We know that it's not all coup leaders that meant well for Africa. Hello guys, you're welcome to So and So. My name is Xavier.
Do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso who we trained? Why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Oftentimes, the people get fed up with their government when one government stays in power for long, making them cry for a military government. It happens a lot in Africa, especially in West Africa. But we know that it's not all the coup that meant well for the people. Some are being sponsored by the Western colonizers, the people that want the government to stay in power for long. Berlin Conference happened in the year 1884 to 1885, where 14 countries in the European zone came together to plan Africa. They actually divided the continent into pieces where countries were being allocated the countries that they will always have dominion over. England was given their share, France was given their share, Spain was given their share, Belgium, a lot of countries. So Africa was actually divided just like a piece of meat. They put knife on it and divided. Over the years, those countries have dominion in those countries. When it comes to West Africa, we have 15 countries in the West African zone. So among these 15 countries, 5 countries, namely Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and then the Gambia. Those countries are being controlled by England. They were colonized by England, so they speak English. 8 of those countries are also French-speaking countries: Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Guinea, Togo, Niger, Burkina Faso, and then Mali. 2 of the countries in West Africa, that's Guinea-Bissau and then Cape Verde, they speak Portuguese. So that is how European countries distributed Africa to themselves. Now, when it comes to Africa, currently we have 4 countries within the West Africa zone that are being led by coup leaders. Coup d'etat happened in those countries within the past 4 years. Countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and then Guinea. Now, who are the people sponsoring those coup d'etats? Because not all coup leaders meant well for Africa. The first coup d'etat happened in Mali actually. The then president of Mali was President Ibrahim Keita. He ruled from the year 2013 to 2020, 7 years in leadership. And there was a coup d'etat that happened on the 18th of August 2020. The coup was led by General Assimi Goïta. He had a military training in Mali, France, and then USA. So the US trained him, France also trained him, and then he was also trained locally in Mali. He led the coup overthrowing a civilian government. Now remember, his background is that he was trained in France, he was trained by the American as well. They shared their ideology with him. So does that mean that this guy is being led, or he's being controlled, or he's being sponsored by the US or France? It is true the thing that he is doing that we will know that he's truly being sponsored by somebody, right? Now, after overthrowing the civilian government, he was in power for just 38 days. And then he chose the former defense minister, that was a former army personnel, to be the president of the country. Now that person was also president for just 241 days, and then General Assimi Goïta came back to overthrow the civilian person that he put in office again. He overthrew him about 4 years ago, and since then he's been the leader. Now 4 months after that coup d'etat, there was another coup that happened in Guinea. It was led by General Mamadi Doumbouya. So Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya led the coup on the 5th of September 2021. He overthrew 83 years old Alpha Condé. Alpha Condé was the civilian government of Guinea from the year 2010 to 5th of September 2021. So he was in office for about 11 years before he was overthrown. Now, who is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya? He was also trained in Guinea and was also trained in France and had a training with the American government. Now, Mamadi is married to Lorraine Doumbouya. Lorraine is a French police officer who is currently working with the National Gendarmerie in France. And this is a colonel, a coup leader in Guinea, married to a French woman, had training in France, and also had training with the American government. Let's watch this video.
General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and equip missions. So just ballpark, in the last decade, how many Africans has the United States military trained and equipped?
Congressman, I don't have that figure. I can get that figure for you.
Ballpark, just, how many?
Congressman, it would be a wild guess, right?
Seems like something we should know, right?
Over the years, we have trained a substantial number, especially in the Gulf of Guinea states, including
Like more than 10,000?
It is more than 10,000.
More than 50,000?
I'd say we're reaching around 50,000
Okay.
at least.
And what percentage of the people we've trained end up participating in insurrections or coups against their own government?
Very small number, Congressman. Very small number.
So what percentage do you think?
I'd say probably less than 1%.
But it does happen.
The IMET program is in force, and we've pushed a significant number through our schools across the.
Yeah, and what data sets do you track to arrive at the conclusion that less than 1% of the roughly 50,000 that we've trained have participated in coups? Because it'd be like about 500, about 1% of 50,000.
Congressman, you may have that information. I don't at this time, but I know.
Well, I know there are some, right? Like go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, and this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him?
Okay, pay attention to this part very, very well.
In Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share
stick to
core
that.
values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values. Respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup.
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We
Leading
stress
coups
core
are in our
values.
curriculum?
We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 99 percentile.
But not everybody. And I wonder how many people it takes to plan a coup. I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1% number because there's no data set you tracked. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by the Intercept.
Without objection, sir.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Congressman, our curriculum harvests core values and also to be able to embolden these countries for a representative democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
Okay, so that was an interrogation in the U.S. Senate. That was a senator interrogating General Michael Langley. He is the general in AFRICOM, a U.S. military body in Africa, training soldiers within the African sub-region, right? So they will go to a country, and then a section of the military or the armed forces in that country will be trained with the American ideology. But out of those things, a lot of the people that are being trained within the African region end up overthrowing civilian government. So the senator wants to know if American taxpayers are actually paying their military in Africa to train soldiers to overthrow a civilian government in Africa. That is the senator's point of view. But from our point of view, we feel that those people are just training soldiers within the African region to overthrow civilian government, and people will think that, okay, now we are having a military leader in office, things are going to get better, not knowing these military leaders are also being sponsored by America or by France. It happened in Ghana. The first president of Ghana, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he was overthrown in a coup d'etat. But the coup leaders were also actually being sponsored by the CIA. Watch this video by President John Dramani Mahama.
Celebrated Independence Day on Thursday. The country's president accused the CIA of toppling his government's founder.
The verdict of history is now loud and clear. The classified documents from the United States archives reveal that this was a coup inspired and engineered by the CIA. This remains the most regrettable and darkest moment in our nation's history.
Okay, so that's President Mahama's speech where he said that the coup d'etat that led to the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was actually sponsored by the CIA of America. So you know that it's not all coup leaders that meant well for their people, right? Now, after the coup d'etat in Guinea, 4 months later, there was another coup in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, then president was Christian Kapari. He ruled from the year 2015. He was in power for just 7 years. And after that, there was a coup d'etat that happened on January 24, 2022. That coup was led by Paul Henry Santiago. Paul Henry Santiago also had the Burkina Faso military training, had a training in France, and had a training in AFRICOM. The US trained him as well. He was in power for just 249 days, and he was overthrown by another coup d'etat again. So Paul overthrew a civilian government, was in power, but the people felt that we thought this is a coup d'etat. You will actually sack the imperialists, the people that are oppressing us. You will sack them. You bring a reform to the system. But he's just going in the way that the civilian government that the people were tired of again. So there was another coup again by the armed forces against their own. And this coup brought in Ibrahim Traore. That coup happened on the 30th of September 2022. And Ibrahim Traore came into power. Their group was called Patriotic Movement for Safeguard Restoration. Now, what are the major steps that Ibrahim Traore and his group took when they came to power? In February 2023, they sacked the French forces in their country. He was formally inaugurated into office on the 6th of October 2022. Ibrahim Traore is the star now in Africa. He's the one being hailed by everybody. 10 months after Ibrahim Traore coup d'etat, the last coup happened in Niger. The president of Niger first was Mahamadou Issoufou. He ruled for 10 years. And after his leadership came Mohamed Bazoum. He was in power for just 2 years, and then he was overthrown by Abdurrahmani Chiani on the 28th of July 2023. He's been in power for about 2 years now. So we have 4 military leaders now in Africa: Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. But it's only 3 that form an alliance called the Alliance of the Sahel State, AES. Why is it that Guinea is not part of that alliance? And why is it that Burkina Faso overthrew another military coup? Who is sponsoring who? Who is the brain behind the military governments? Watch this video by Ibrahim Traore.
So today with Russia, what are they getting in return? We know well that there is no friendship between states. It's always about interests. Everyone comes for their own interests. So today, there is a fear among some people that we've just swapped one master for another. However, I know you a little bit to know that you are not about replacing one master with another. What are you giving the Russians very concretely for them to be there? Are they taking minerals? How are you paying them? Are you selling a portion of the territory? What's the deal?
If the deal was really to leave one master for another, we would rather die. Because when we say the homeland or death, it has its full meaning. No, it's just media.
Mr. President, when we see all this, with all the logistics you mentioned, with the Russians being brought in to inform, as you said, your troops, it costs a lot of money. Can the Burkinabe economy sustain this for long?
Very good question. It costs a lot of money. That's why I say our countries are not poor. There has been mismanagement. There is theft. The plundering of our resources. That's it. That's what it's about. I'll give an example. Today there is the Patriotic Support Fund. The population contributes and we mainly support. The volunteers for the defense of the homeland with it. But what about the rest of the army that we are equipping? All these resources we are acquiring, it's there. It's governance, finances. There are resources, we have potential. But if it's mismanaged, we are a book.
For you, do the countries have enough to sustain themselves by producing and just practicing good governance?
How do we manage to get material? It's not for our pretty eyes, as you say, that we're given things. We pay. But it's about management. There are situations we manage because in all departments, all ministerial sectors, everyone does their best to rationalize. And when we say rational, what does that mean? You know, there is this habit of corruption at a high level, of overbilling, because when someone runs for elections, especially here in Africa, it's like a business. They will finance it. That's the habit here. They distribute money so that people will vote for them. It's an investment. And as soon as they get in, they have to pay back to reimburse. We don't have that with us. We don't have accounts abroad. We have nothing. We don't want any. Everything is directed towards the war. If you look at the oil sector, you know that the state subsidizes petroleum products, gasoline, diesel, so that Burkinabes pay less for it. In 2022, for example, the subsidies were around 400, almost 500 billion. 400 and some, the state pays.
500 billion CFA francs.
In 2023, we are at less than 100 billion in subsidies.
Does that mean you saved 400 billion in subsidies?
How do you explain that? We were free too, when people make their proposals, to tell the company, Tsunabi, okay, such and such a person will make a proposal at such a price. But you take it at this price and the rebates. You give us. We go open our offshore accounts and put it in there. That's how it happens.
And they hold you from that moment on, when you have opened accounts abroad?
Of course, if you mess around, we will manage your accounts. We don't have an account. So, everything is geared towards war. These savings, it's the equipment.
Okay, so that's Ibrahim Traore's view about Russia. Now we know that the Sahel nation is being sponsored by the people in the Caribbean and the people in Africa. African people in general, they are very spiritual people. So when you see the leader, you will know. Why is it that the Mali leader is not being hailed like Ibrahim Traore? Why is it that the Nigerian leader is not being praised like Ibrahim Traore? Why is it that Ibrahim Traore they are praising always? You know that when somebody is oppressing you and then there is a coup d'etat, bringing in a new government. Bringing in a new government does not mean that you'll be liberated. Cutting yourself off from the people that you think that they are oppressing you is the real change. That is what the people in the AES have done. Why people are praising them. Because when there is a coup d'etat, and then French is still in the country, they are still in your minds, they are still having control of your forces, you have no say, they are still in control. So until there is a real change by cutting off from the people that are oppressing you, the imperialists, you are still under control, and so there's no freedom, there is no liberation. You just sack another puppet out and bring in another puppet in uniform. The changes that Ibrahim Traore is bringing to Burkina Faso is the reason why people think that he is the real Thomas Sankara, or he is the second Thomas Sankara, and is the real person bringing the changes. And so out of them three, we know that the Niger leader is being trained only in Niger. He has been training in Niger. He had no training in France, had no training with the American government. Same as Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore was only trained in Burkina Faso. He had no military training in France. He had no military training with the American government. He is a local trained person. And all the time, anytime that he's talking, he's only talking for the motherland. He said homeland or death. As if they will defend their homeland to the last drop of their blood. Same message is being preached by the leader in Niger as well. Those two leaders are not training by the foreigners or the imperialists. It's only Mali president Assimi Goïta that had training with the American government and the French government. And so when you see a leader cutting the imperialists out, you will know it's that this person actually meant good. And that is the reason why Emmanuel Macron is always on the neck of Ibrahim Traore, trying to kick him out. Ibrahim Traore and the leaders in the Sahel nation are working with Russia. According to them, France was not ready to help them. France was just in their country, taking their resources to the French economy. They are not actually helping them. But with Russia, Russia is ready to help them with ammunition to fight terrorists. There are a lot of terrorism within the Sahel nation. But now terrorists are even running away because they now have ammunition that is being imported from Russia into their country. So their soldiers are now being enabled to fight the terrorists out of their territory. So when you check the background of your military leader, you actually know who is sponsoring who. And when you see the changes that they are bringing into the economy, you will see that this person is being sponsored by this person, and this person is also being sponsored by another person. When you sack the imperialists out, when you take the destiny of your country into your own hands to fight for the motherland, the people will actually know it that you are the true leader that is fighting for them. But when you are in power and you keep being in touch with your imperialists, they will know that you are just another puppet in uniform. I'll keep giving you an update about the Sahel nation as it happens.